Welcome back to 1 month 1 deck featuring Future Box. This week I took the deck into a tournament to really stress test it and see exactly where its weaknesses actually are in a competitive setting. Now I finished the event with a 3-2 record and both of those losses were extremely close. In each case, the game came down to seeing 1 or 2 specific cards that would have completely swung the match in my favor. Now for this week I didn't change the deck list at all from week 1. I really liked how the list felt and I wanted to test it in a tournament environment first before making any big adjustments. Now the biggest issue that I found was that Future Box can burn out pretty quickly. In most games you're powering up 2 attackers. Once those go down, it can be difficult to power up a 3rd attacker in time to be able to win the game. That's definitely something to keep in mind going forward and something I'll be looking to address in future weeks. Now, if you want to try this list for yourself, the full deck list is linked in the description below. Now, let's jump into the games. Alright, so the first game up is the Mega Frostlass game for you guys, and this is actually one of our harder matchups because they can actually just sit on a bunch of single prizers using the baby Frostlass to be able to deal a ton of damage constantly to all of our Pokemon because most of our Pokemon have abilities. Our Iron Crown, our Valiant that we're constantly using both have abilities, and they're 2 prizers while they only have single prizers that they can sit on. And then late game they can actually go into the Mega Frostlass to take a big knockout. Now in here they do get down double Snorunt. They were forced to go first because we won the coin flip, and our hand is pretty nice. We're able to get into the Miraidon and then we can hit them with the Iono. Unfortunately this is giving them more cards, but we want to try to find more pieces of our combo. Now in here, I do make a mistake with this Nest Ball, so the 2 options that I'm going over in my head is grabbing another Iron Crown or grabbing this bundle. I choose to go with the bundle, and I am putting down the Mew EX plus the Valiant, but I could have just went for the Crown and been able to do a ton of damage to the Monkey Dory. I go for the bundle play specifically to play around a couple things, and that's primarily, I know that I'm not doing enough damage to take out the Snorunt, but if they do go into a baby Frostlass on here and I find a way into multiple switchings, I could still take a knockout on that baby Frostlass using the damage ticks from our Iron Valiant. Now, because they're playing Frostlass, we know that they aren't going to be running Battle Cage either, so we don't have to worry about them stopping our ability that way. So that's an easy way that we can clear up the knockout. And I choose with this Miraidon to be able to put the energy onto our Valiant instead of our Crown, just in case they go into a Mega Frostlass this turn to be able to do a bunch of damage. We can at least soften it up heavily using the Valiant. So I was trying to play around the Mega Frostlass early as much as I can, giving us the best shot at both worlds. Now in here, they did get a Luminous Energy onto their Monkey Dory, so they will be able to move 30 damage off of this Snorunt and be able to heal a little bit from it. They also put on the air balloon, so they're going to be able to retreat, and they do have the Artisan from that secret box. That way then they can go into this Badoo. They also have that Pokepad, so we know that they're getting down at least a single copy of Frostlass this turn as well, and this is where the pain really starts happening against us with these Frostlasses. So now we are kind of on a timer before we lose the game. Now they get down a 2nd copy of Frostlass as well, so that timer has just been sped up tremendously. Here they are going to be moving that damage, and it's important on to what they move it to. So they put it onto the Valiant because they see that that's the only other attacker that we have being set up now, so they need to make sure that they are getting as much damage on it as possible just to eliminate our attackers. Now, they do have 80 HP on their Badoo because they put on the Charm. We are going to use this Artisan just to make sure of what else is left in the deck. We're counting how many Ionos we have, we're counting how much energy we have left, and how many Jet Energy specifically. Now, we know that we're not doing enough damage just yet, so we are forced to be able to grab a Switch and then grab a copy of Future Booster. This allows us to do a double switch play because we can actually throw some damage onto this Badoo, attach the Future Booster, and then retreat into the Miraidon. This is still going to take the knockout, and we're not having to keep a Future Booster on our Miraidon that can easily be knocked out with some damage. Now in here we are taking just a single prize, but getting rid of that Budew is nice. We're not able to use the switch just yet, but having that in our hand for later means that they're forced to hit us with a Iono early, otherwise we can start pressing more damage. And I choose this time to put energy onto the Iron Crown. That way, if they are going to stay in this single prize setup, we can actually use the Iron Crown to deal a ton of damage. Now, their list is running a copy of Shaman. That's another reason why I went for the Valiant first for powering up and not the Crown, just to be able to play around that. Now in here, they do have the counter catchers, so they bring up the Valiant that has the future booster for some reason, and that is completely fine by me because we can still get some extra damage, and there is a potential that we can do a ton and take out multiple Pokemon this next turn. Now in here, they are going to fire off their Super Rod 2, putting back a couple Pokemon, and then they are going to put down the Psyduck for some reason. I don't know why they put down the Psyduck. That's just a liability on their side, and it is going to come back to bite them. Now, they are starting to move a bunch of the damage over to the Mew, that way then they can take a easy 2 prizes that way, so we are still having to hurry here. Now, we do top deck into another copy of Valiant. I could put that down right now, but I would rather just save it in hand for later. We don't really need to go into another attacker here. We already have another Valiant. Now, I am choosing to use a lot of resources this turn. I'm using that switch, that way then I can put 20 damage onto one of the Monkey Dories, then manually retreat into the other Valiant and be able to put another 20 damage before using the Jet to be able to bring up the Crown. That way then I can take out both copies of Monkey Dory this turn, and that is massive. Now, and the only downside that we really have is that we have no other switch cards left in our hand, but we do still have most of our switch and most of our jet still left in the deck, so it's easy enough to be able to draw into them, and if need be, we can thin our hand down pretty low and then be able to draw off of this Mew as well. Now, this Psyduck's going to be another free prize for us. It will get knocked out at the start of their next turn, and they are benching another copy of Budew just to hit us with another hit of Item Lock, most likely. Now, by them benching that Budew, that actually makes things even easier for us, but they also have this Blood Moon Ursaluna, so they're actually going to pivot to that as well. So I don't think that they should have benched that Budew. They should have just kept that in hand, because that's a free target that we can take a knockout on. Now in here, they're not attacking with the Ursaluna either, so they're just saving it to be able to take a knockout next turn. They didn't have another energy to attach. They were forced to attach an energy to the Ursaluna last turn. Now in here, we are just going to thin our hand a bunch. That way then we can actually draw a couple cards here. We are going to get the bundle, and we're going to use that right now just to see what they throw up. If they throw up the Ursaluna, then we immediately can just win the game. If they throw up the Budew, then we can still just do a ton of damage to the Budew and do a ton of damage to one of the Frostlass. Here, we actually did draw into a switch, so we are able to start throwing a little bit of damage. I'm thinking about just throwing the damage onto the Ursaluna, but I am going to throw it on the Frostlass. This kind of puts him into a checkmate situation, because we can easily take a big knockout next turn on a Frostlass, or if they don't knock out our Valiant, then we can take a knockout using Valiant onto their Ursaluna if they do still swing with that into the Iron Crown. So we're covering our bases as much as possible. From the prizes, we do get a copy of Switch as well, but our opponent hasn't really played any Iono, and they are playing 4 copies of it, so there is a high chance that we are going to get Iono this turn, and we just lost our Mew as well, giving them 2 prizes. So it would be very devastating if we got hit by an Iono here, but at the same time, we have all the pieces that we need, that we can still win the game next turn, most likely. Now, they are going to be swinging with this Ursaluna, and they are starting to throw more damage onto the Valiant, but they only have a single Monkey Dory that's able to throw damage, and that Valiant is going to live with just a little bit of HP. So here, they do take that knockout, taking 2 prizes. Neither of our Valiants are getting knocked out here, and as you see, it's literally 20 HP left on this Valiant, but we are able to do 220 damage here, so what we need to do is we need to do a little bit extra, so we use the switch, that way then we can move 20 extra damage onto the Ursaluna, and then be able to swing and take the knockout. Alright, so the other game that I have to show you guys this week is going to be against that Gholdengo. So here we start with double Valiant. We lost the coin flip, so they forced us to go first, and our hand isn't the greatest. We have a Research, we have an Iono, that's pretty nice. We have double Wondrous Patch and a Jet Energy, but we don't really have the Miraidon or the rest of our Iron Crowns that we need or anything like that. So here, their start is pretty slow as well. They only get down a single copy of Gimmighoul, and they have just a lone Lunatone, so they're still missing a Solrock, and they're missing the other pieces that they need as well. Now, we are forced to use that Iono. I could have just used the Research, but then we would have lost way too many resources, and I wasn't willing to do that. Now, in here, we are able to get down into a Miraidon, and we are starting to throw some damage onto that Gimmighoul, trying to be able to thin our hand a little bit more to draw an extra card before swinging onto this Lunatone. Now, I'm choosing to power up the other Valiant. That way, if they do have like Gholdengo plus Boss's Orders, then they're only getting rid of just a single Valiant, and there's still a decent chance that we'll be able to go into a Valiant next turn and potentially take a reverse knockout. Now in here, they do get down the Solrock, so they are able to just start drawing some extra cards. They are going to go straight into the Gholdengo here, drawing 2 more cards as well. So they were able to draw 5 cards that turn, and they do have the Boss's Orders, so they are bringing up the Valiant that has the 2 energy, and this paid off a lot by still having a single Valiant with a single energy as well. Now in here, we are just going to throw up the Miraidon, because we are going to have to fire off this Arven, getting specific things. We need to get the Wondrous Patch plus the Future Booster. That way we can actually power up our Valiant and be able to swing this turn. The other option that I was looking at is potentially risking it by getting down the Mew, but we need to be able to do as much as we can, and that's what we're doing here. Now we also have that switch as well, which we had to blow. That way then we can actually deal just enough damage to be able to take the knockout. So we have no cards left in our hand other than these from the prizes, and we do get a Iron Crown and a Future Booster from those, so that's pretty nice, but we would have liked another copy of Valiant, or maybe even a supporter that could actually draw us into a better hand. Now in here, they do get down double Gimmighoul, and they are going to just most likely swing with this Solrock this turn. They are drawing a bunch of cards, and now you see what their A-spec is, which is the Precious Trolley. Usually Gholdengos are running Precious Trolley now because of the Rocks engine, but sometimes they run Secret Box as well, and it's hard to tell which one of those is actually worse to play against and which of those is actually just much better as a player that plays it. Now in here, we are going to use the Artisan that they gave us to be able to find this Iron Bundle. This way we can actually force them to give us something else. And we're choosing to do this right now because we do have a copy of Switch in our hand, so we can just manually retreat here. They did fall for the bait and gave us the Genesect, which is huge because this actually gives us a chance of being able to win the game still. But this is also super risky because we're forced to be able to take a knockout on this Genesect this turn, meaning that we have to use this Iron Valiant that we have powered up to do so. Now, they are almost guaranteed to take a knockout next turn on our Valiant, meaning that we're going to need to find double Wondrous Patch, which we have 3 left in the deck, and an energy to attach, plus a Valiant. So we need to find 4 cards just to be able to win the game next turn. Otherwise, we won't be winning. Now, we did get off of the prizes double Research, so we will be able to see 7 more cards next turn. 8 counting the one that we draw for turn, and potentially more depending on what else we draw. So there is a decent chance that we could find what we need here. Now they are going to be just going through their hand a little bit, drawing some extra cards before actually swinging, taking the big knockout. So we are just going to throw up the Miraidon here. We top deck into a Mystery Garden, so first we are going to use this Artisan. We're going to thin our deck by 1 by getting this Miraidon down, and we're making sure of what all we have. We still have 6 energy left in the deck, plus the 3 Wondrous Patch and another Iron Valiant. Now, from that research, we actually do get into the Valiant. We get into a Psychic, we also get into a Mew EX right here, and we also find a way into a single copy of Wondrous Patch. So we need to thin our hand as much as possible right now. So what I'm doing is I'm grabbing the Valiant, I'm grabbing the Crown. This can be just enough damage. I am going to be able to use this Wondrous Patch, be able to get 1 energy there. I am going to use the Mystery Garden right now first before using like a Mew or anything in case we draw into other things that we can get. I am debating about which one to discard there, but I discard the Psychic. We top deck into a Techno Radar. So I fail to find there, 1 last draw, and we don't find the patch. So unfortunately, we're not able to take the knockout here, and we're also not able to disrupt their hand, meaning that there's a very high chance that they have another copy of Boss's Orders in hand, which would just win them the game. Now in here, they are still just drawing through their deck. They're down to 9 cards left, and the fact that they haven't just immediately popped the boss means that they're probably still just digging to try to find it. Here, they're down to 6 cards now from using all of their Goldangos, and then they still have the Lunatone to be able to draw some more. They do find the boss, so I do give them a couple more seconds to take the knockout here. They do use that Superior Energy before using another one, and then they fire off a Earthen Vessel after this, so I concede. Overall, Future Box has been a blast to play so far. Next week, I'll be taking the deck into another tournament, possibly with some changes, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. If you enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button. I post new videos every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.